big.
Good day. How are you?
Oh, good day. How are you?
Not too bad. We are the Society, formerly known as the Blacksteel Mercenaries, and Freestyle Trading. We've come together to form the Society, and we've heard about your wonderful tour, and
Oh,
therefore
welcome.
interested in visiting.
Okay. There's not very good anchor points, so if you can find one, grab it.
Right. Okay. I'll let the captain of the ship worry about that. I don't know what these two will go with it. Oh, hello. You could just stay on the ship like normal people. Or not. What? Hello?
Nope.
Bagatha,
I was
this
too excited.
man is from the society, I think he said.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Theo von Arlington.
Oh, hello, nice to meet you. Name's Boggert.
Boggert, pleasure.
And I'm her twin, Boggert.
Yes.
Pleasure to meet you, man.
Oh, nice to meet you as well.
Wonderful. The rest of the crew will be departing soon, I presume, and then,
Oh,
have you got
hello.
time for a tour? I hope we're not, you know.
Yes, we have time.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, yes. If you give me 5 minutes, I just need to turn on a few candles.
Sure, yeah, of course. We'll wait for your call.
Sorry the anchor is difficult here.
to see it. We've heard many good stories.
Oh, wonderful. Here comes Boggert now. All right, we'll be glad to lead you towards the museum if you're ready.
We are.
Wonderful.
Go run.
I need to stop saying wonderful. I should. It's what my bloody father used to say.
Yeah, you sound just like him.
The docks are a little tricky. Just make your way across the edge.
Yeah, don't jump in the water. There may or may not be
Oh.
stairs to get back up with.
I don't know if I can make it.
You got this. Go, Thea.
Oh,
Go, Thea.
we are not liable for any accidents.
Right, I did it.
This is
That
the
was
first.
close.
This is the first trial of the museum.
Jack, don't get your look stuck. And then
Right.
Just be careful to walk on the boards.
It's hot.
at least we'd see you in the water with that haircut. And hell too.
What?
How's this black?
Nothing hell. Oh yeah.
Run.
I'm going to be checking this out when I get.
Run fast.
Come on, Benjamin. You slow.
Go fast. Gotta go fast. Gotta go fast.
Oh, God.
Oh no, I'm winning.
No one said anything about running.
I don't see how y'all do it running in them dresses.
I definitely won. Oh boy, look at this. Looks like a. Is it a dragon or a snake?
Yeah, it's a face. It's a head. We have to go down through the head and into the museum.
Oh.
Okay. Don't fall off, Theo.
Oh, there's a tongue as well.
Yeah, there is. We have a few signs in here if everyone wants to read the signs on the way in. The tour takes a while. It could take an hour and a half or so, depending on the chatter that we have.
Okay.
Go ahead, Miss Hazel.
What a place.
Jack, you're not allowed in.
Hey, right. Why am I not allowed in?
It's got
You
you
made us
child.
die.
It's a good thing we didn't bring Kenzo.
Aye.
Kenzo wouldn't be allowed in.
It's alright, I could hold his hand.
Right,
Are you
welcome.
telling me? Are you saying I'm a child?
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, Theo's the youngest. I think he's the child.
Yeah.
Go
Come
ahead,
on,
Asher.
Theo.
Don't bump your head now.
Come take my hand. Come on. There's a good boy. Come on. Here we go. I'll look after him, make sure he's all right.
All right, everybody, let's be well behaved while we're in here, okay?
Okay.
All right. If you're ready to begin, we'll begin. Leave your preconceived notions of the normal world at this very threshold, and enter the world of the mysterious, the unusual, and the odd at BoggOdd Oddities Museum. By entering the museum, you agree management not responsible for any and all incidents herein, including but not limited to any falling, tripping, or plunging into wells, graves, or otherwise.
Right.
Okay.
Please step lively into the next chamber.
Unsure about the grave part.
Just
After
inside.
you.
The tour starts just on your right after you enter the museum.
I'm going to close the door behind me, but if anyone needs out, please see me.
You need out, just scream.
Meow.
At a blazing hot tropical free port, there stood a quiet specialty cheese shop at the end of an alley. You're probably questioning, is it appropriate to locate a cheese shop in the melting heat? The answer, no. Not because of the heat, however. It was because of the feral cats. The cats had taken to begging at the local cheese shop. As patrons left, they would kindly drop a crumb or two. This led to more cats waiting for the next patron, and more cats waiting for the next patron. Eventually, the roof support beams groaned and popped under the weight of waiting cats. The shop owner attempted to shoo them away at first, but then realized the cats wouldn't touch the crumbs of the most pungent cheeses. A patron remarked, "It is so hot today, the stone walls are almost sizzling." As the patron rounded the corner, the shop owner sprang into action and, gathering the most pungent cheeses, pressed them into the wall where they melted, sticking them on. It did work. To the cats, the stench of the cheese was so intense that they fled to the far side of the island. The cheese shop owner rested well that evening until suddenly the roof supports began to creak and groan. Running into the dark to chase the cats off the bowing roof, the shop owner caught a glimpse of them through the moonlight. The cats first turned their eyes and then their beaks toward the shop owner. It is then the shop owner realized the roof was covered not in cats, but in starving, hungry vultures.
Dear.
And these are the very walls, if anyone wants to sniff the walls of the pungent cheese.
Sure, feel free. Those are very pungent cheeses. You may have smelled them when you walked through the door.
Yeah, I did. Indeed.
Oh, a stinky cheddar.
A stinky.
God, hell, it's changed your hair colour.
What?
What in the world?
Oh,
What's wrong with your
smells
beard
like
now,
your
too?
socks, Theo.
The Great Northern Factory disaster took place on a particularly cold, dark, rainy evening. The main source of heat in the frozen north was a giant fireplace located below the smokestack here in front of us. The factory backed up to a large rock mountain, and the entrance of a great coal mine was built down from the factory into the depths of the mountain. The top of the mountain was known habitat for an assortment of animals. The employees of the factory found a particularly large snake roasting on the coals late one afternoon and proceeded to prepare it for the dinner pot. It wasn't unusual for someone to bring whatever they had to share, although they could not determine who brought the snake. They made a feast of the snake anyways and went back to work. As the evening grew colder and darker, they placed more and more coal onto the fire. What no one realized is that the snake, deliciously roasting on the fire, had chased a rather plump sheep off the mountaintop. The snake and the sheep both fell over the edge and landed on top of the smokestack. The snake plunged down through the coals below as the sheep was wedged high above the factory. The toxic smoke had already weakened most of the workers to the point they could no longer get out by the time the panic began. But 3 workers were killed in this tragedy. The death toll was said to be near 458 lives, and it would remain the largest number of people killed by a single sheep for at least 2 more decades.
Good lord.
Yeah.
That is terrifying.
I know.
Damn.
Bleh.
Before
Now,
you...
is
What?
this the actual sheep then, or is this a replica?
No, this is just a... That's a standard sheep. It's just there as a replica. It
I was
enjoys...
gonna say.
It enjoys being up
Holy
there.
crap, there's a sheep up there.
Did you not
Yes.
see that?
It's the sheep that plugged the chimney. Not the actual one, but we try.
I feel very silly for
Indeed.
not seeing that. I'm gonna
Oh
stand
my
over.
goodness.
Appreciated.
Too bad the snake.
Before you here is a certified giraffe examination chair. It has been placed here as a public service by the Giraffe Handlers Association. When a giraffe needs to be examined for multiple reasons, it is
Oh, I'm
much
sorry.
easier to inspect the giraffe from closer to their height. The doctor will climb up the chair, and the giraffe will be brought closer for inspection purposes. What type of inspections, you ask? Well, one purpose is to inspect whether they have the giraffe-like teeth or the less common human-like teeth, of course. But the far more common reason, however, is to see if the ears have been laid with spider eggs again. Giraffe ears are known to be the perfect habitat for spider eggs, laying their eggs in the giraffe's warm ear hair that lie forgotten until the time comes for the hatching. If you have giraffes, tame or wild, near your home, be sure they do not shake their heads frequently. This is the first sign the spider eggs have been laid. If your giraffe has ears infested with spider eggs, the time will come they will hatch, and the giraffe's head shaking will deposit hatchlings around and throughout your home.
Wait a
That's
minute.
where they're all coming from.
That's what's happening.
Oh
We've been
no.
called-
Where's the spiders?
You have the spiders.
Here are they?
So many
I
spiders.
don't like.
Oh no. Do you have giraffes anywhere near your home? That's where Just watch the giraffes. See if they're shaking their heads. If they're shaking their heads, they have the eggs in their ears. It's a terrible malady for the poor giraffe as well.
And on top of that, if you see a spider off in the distance, most likely it's already seen you and started making a run towards you.
No, I don't like it. They can see you from so far away. It's all the eyes. The tiny beady eyes.
I hate them. I hate them.
This way, please.
Buy sheep.
In a far-off kingdom, a rotten king reigned supreme. He was known to frequently decide that he had been slighted and place people in prison to be punished, or worse. The king unexpectedly ordered a particularly complicated feast from his chef Arthur in the middle of the night. The chef and the kitchen staff worked frantically, as tired as they were to create a culinary masterpiece. The feast was a triumph, and the king later sent word to see if he may speak with the chef. Word arrived early in the morning. The king would be to the kitchens within the hour, and the kitchen staff readied themselves for his visit. The king arrived with his guards and quietly toured the kitchens as he thoroughly inspected many things. Nothing was said, and the king simply looked at his guards as he approached the exit and nodded. King's guards proceeded to destroy the kitchen. The pots and pans, the kitchen tools were destroyed. The guards turned to the chef and they said, "The king would like you to know he is displeased with last night's feat. You forgot to serve sea salt instead of salt with his meal." The chef was aghast. He knew he had served sea salt. He had prepared it himself. He only said "aye" before he was cut off, and told he was removed from the king's staff and he would be placed in prison to await further punishment. The king felt assured that mistakes would no longer be made in his kitchen, and as a test, a few weeks later, he had a new feast prepared for the opening of the night's tournament, at the end of which a victorious knight stood remaining. The king was so unhappy he was slighted again, and his favorite knight did not win the tournament, that he rushed the other knight, dagger in hand. That knight flicked away the dagger and gave the king what was intended for the knight. The king, now removed from life and power, the entrant made their way to the throne and seated themselves. The shocked crowd dropped the facade of reverence for the old king and warmly welcomed a new and powerful leader. The guards, also shocked, but no longer hiding their contempt for the rotten king, said, "All hail the new king," to which the entrant removed their helmet and said, "Queen, all hail the new queen." The guards, "What would you have us do, your majesty?" they asked. "Firstly, bring me Arthur, chef from the prisons." Arthur approached the new queen, and he quietly asked, "Daughter, what has happened? And are those my pots and pans you're wearing?" "It's time to explain it all," she said. "They sent them to me at the blacksmith shop for repairs. They did not know I was your daughter." She smiled pleasantly at her father as they waved toward the crowd over the tournament field the cold, dead body of the former king. "You always said that your pots and pans would bring us good fortune, father. You just didn't know how right you were."
Bravo!
What a tale.
Yes.
Before we enter into the next room, do not panic. Please remain calm. The fire is under control, and if there is in case of an emergency, we will exit you properly through the exits.
Yeah, we will. It's a fire that looks like fire. It's all right. We know there's other kinds out there.
All those guys made out of pots and pans.
Oh, here.
Fire!
That's okay. It's all right.
You're
You're
right.
all safe
You
here.
sure?
Yes, for sure.
It's made of vegetables.
On a roasting hot desert island, it rarely rained. House fires were happening frequently. To combat the fires, the residents used what they had to craft 2 fire carts. These carts, each pulled by the best rhinosaur that the island could breed, were filled with water and pulled from location to location. Raspberry the monkey, found wandering an island used as a turtle habitat, was a pet of the head of the fire cart haulers. Out on one of their first patrols, they discovered something unusual. Raspberry had previously been trained to pull a cart. They decided that given his constant insistence that he be handed the reins, Raspberry would be trained to drive the rhinosaur of cart number 2. This worked more than well. Raspberry was already a complete natural at cart handling, needing no instructions at all. They even crafted a small seat just for him. This allowed the others to focus on the fires even more. Months passed with the carts racing to and from the fires, Raspberry excitedly guiding the cart all the way. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult morning of fighting a long series of fires, the bell rang out. It was time to ready the carts, and Raspberry couldn't be located. The head of the fire cart haulers went to Raspberry's room and found the monkey asleep in bed. Knowing the poor creature must be exhausted after the morning that they had, they had another member of the fire cart haulers pull the reins. They left without poor tired Raspberry and headed to the fire. Along the way, they spotted an unreported house fire and slowed cart number 2 to water it before catching back up to cart number 1. While spraying the house, the front door burst open and a soaking wet Raspberry, extinguished torch in hand, emerged. Not believing that Raspberry could be both asleep and at the scene of the fire, his bed was checked. Neatly shaped and arranged was a pair of trousers, made to look like a sleeping Raspberry the monkey. Raspberry's wise at a great many things, cart hauling and deception being among his greatest talents. He was returned to the offices of the Turtle Sanctuary, where he was found so that he could retire from his very active life. The fire stopped overnight, and the fire cart haulers were quiet. One afternoon, though, a flare was fired, and a representative of a neighboring island had arrived, wanting advice on fire carts. They had been plagued with fires recently, but they also needed something unusual, a small seat in the front, as they had the oddest thing, you see, a monkey who knew how to drive a cart.
Wow.
Well, I love monkeys.
Yeah, we don't really trust this monkey here. It's got like a charcoal tip tail on it.
It's got charcoal on the end of its tail. It's been somewhere.
Seems suspicious.
Very suspicious.
Naughty Raspberry.
What about the fire car?
We need one of those retrofitted for our sloop. Put out the fires on the
Can we have
brig.
monkeys that pull... can we train our monkeys to pull carts? Don't fall down, I know.
Right, be careful not to fall into the pit. Management not responsible for any and all incidents herein
And thereafter.
and forever. No, this is not a tavern filled with delicious libations behind me. In fact, if you had been here 50 years ago, you would be dead. It was an unusual long time ago, that's right, to add additives into your spirits to give them an interesting taste, be it bittersweet or bittersweet. It was an unusually crowded evening the night before and would be again at a combination inn and tavern. The tavern keep was too busy to go for the ingredients for a top note to add to the drink for the night evening. The tavern keep's sibling was sent to pick up the rare, delicious, sweet ingredient, Majestine. The herbologist, however, was also out, and in the stead their apprentice was working. The assistant herbologist mistook the requested magistine for the more common pest remover, maggot stem. Nearly identical in both appearance and flavor, coupled with the unfortunate similarity in name. The switch was made. The maggot stem was delivered to the tavern, used to give their libations their signature smooth sweetness. As is custom with a spirit house attached to overnight accommodations, the drink poured heavily and quickly. The hallucinations began an hour into the evening, and the vomiting began shortly thereafter. Ingestion of maggot stem was said to produce hallucinations such as liquid running down the walls, inanimate objects breathing, skies filled with flying animals, and the mistaking of human form for animal. The chaos of these visions, coupled with the vomiting, began a putrid battle inside the tavern, where all fought for their very lives. Any who made it outside were driven back in by the visions they saw in the sky. Those victors who survived the vomitous battle were said to have lain unconscious on these very floorboards until their heart slowed to death.
Dear God.
Mr. Anna, how old are you?
What in the world?
This isn't your doing, is it?
Did you? I think Anna did it.
Alright, the next exhibit is behind you all. I'll do it from here. I don't want to push my way through. If you've ever been to a hot, humid, tropical island, you know all too well the heat can be unrelenting. Two elderly brothers were looking for a lost goat near their home when they stumbled upon something. A very large abandoned well. The well had run low of water, but on the inside it had a beautiful pool at the bottom. The brothers were knelt beside the lid to the well, and when they opened it, they could feel the cool, refreshing air blow past them. They thought about and discussed that well the remainder of the day and night. They woke the next day with a plan to put a ladder into the well and see what was down inside. They slipped from the final ladder rung into a cool, dark water, and enjoyed the most luxuriously pleasant soak in neck-high, perfectly chilled water. The water drained a bit more over time, though, and instead of floating, they now had to kneel or sit on the bottom of the well. This did not suit their aging frames very well, and they began to talk of a new plan. It was decided to make the well a bit more comfortable, so they moved some furniture inside using ropes and the goat, who was found in time, to lower some things down from the hatch above. This would be their final plan. Their friend, who knew of the well and having not seen the brothers for some time, began to worry and look for them. When they approached the well, however, they could already tell something was wrong. The scent of mold and mildew and end of life met their friend before the well. For you see, as they were soaking in the cool, damp richness of the well, their furniture was also. The introduction of the furniture began a growth of mold and mildew and rot that first tainted the well and then outright poisoned it. As their furniture was slowly mildewing and molding from the outside, the cool, damp, dark back of the chairs was growing a deadly fungus. Before that fungus was discovered, it had already started to emit toxic spores, which filled the well and the lungs of the two elderly brothers.
Boy,
Oh my.
fungus.
Well.
Well.
You could say they went out with a splash.
Yes, I did.
The story is very deep.
Anybody just have a little look at this ball?
Don't do it, Theo.
Sorry, I was just checking Anna's fingerprint.
That's all right, yes. We
Ow.
understand.
Oh no, not the cage again. I'm not going back in there.
You want to get in? You want to sit in the cage while I do the story?
I'll sit in it.
Right. You're welcome to. All right. Far beneath a beautiful country estate lies strange fate for those unfortunate enough to have encountered a pair of mad, noble women. They had a secret which would have run the blood cold of those in the aristocratic circles they kept themselves in. The mad women had developed an unusual diet preference. Human toenails. Half-hearted soldier, drunken sailor, or sea wench. They preyed upon them all. They went into the dark night to round up their victims. They would wait outside tavern and dance hall for those inebriated enough not to put up a fight. A bag over the head and about 6 pence around was usually enough to knock even the stoutest person unconscious if they had been plied with enough drink. They would be locked into the chambers on each side of me here, their feet scrubbed, cleaned, and their toenails carefully trimmed so as not to waste any of the most precious resource. I know what you're wondering. Why not just pull them out at the root? After all, that's the sensible thing to do. Well, the sisters weren't monsters. They were just unusually hungry. So unusually hungry. Each victim awakened dumped on the outskirts of town, shoeless, sockless, pants rolled to their knees. But their feet were beautifully scrubbed, and their toenails had been perfectly trimmed. The sisters were caught when they mistook sleepy officers for inebriated, and were overcome by them. Threatening with having their toenails pulled out at the root, it is the sensible thing to do. They confessed to the entire ruse. Afterward, they fell from grace and out of high society, and took on new identities, where they began to work in the wash-house, trimming the nails of those who came to bathe, thereby continuing to feed their insane and insatiable hunger.
Ew.
Oh.
Well, we just bring the stories that we have. We can't.
Yeah.
Wait, Theo.
Get your shoes off then. Come on.
You want to clean my
Theo.
feet? Clean my
Take your
feet.
shoes off.
Is,
Relation.
is that what you named your ship after, Theo?
She's got a feet up.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah, do my feet, do my feet, do my feet.
I'll just lick this one.
Oh, no, don't lick them.
There's something wrong with you.
Sorry.
You'll
Check. Might have spiders.
I don't want to stand under that thing.
I'll have a cuddle with the spider.
A new, beautiful island Freeport was too close to a deep-water ocean trench. The frequent ship traffic to and from the island angered the residents of the deep waters. Many different creatures made their way from the depth to investigate the new disturbance, as the swirling waters mixed new warmer water down into the formerly cool ocean trench, as well as introducing new types of detritus into the depths. Mermaids from the trench seemed to grow much angrier, becoming a constant menacing presence in the waters. To teach the citizens defensive tactics to protect themselves against angry mermaids, as well as to ensure people would not fear nearing the very profitable Freeport. The Freeport opened a training institute just off the shore. Seen before you here are the standard issue training form, as well as the specialized mermaid training form developed at the institute. Normally housed in deeper water, this form was used to teach citizens techniques to avoid or defend against angry mermaids. The mermaids seemed to realize something was occurring at the Freeport, however, and really began to increase their violence. Eventually, they began to investigate the institute itself, making their way to the shoreside, where the training forms were stationed. Instead of damaging the training forms, the mermaids began to study them. They possibly believed them to be figures in reverence of themselves. It is believed that they took this as a sign. The mermaid was a respected neighbor and led them to stop their attacks completely. Unintentionally, the forms did work to protect the citizens. No one trained to defend themselves ever had to, and the mermaid forms were left in the water as a sign of continued mutual respect. Luckily for the Freeport, the mermaids had not witnessed the defensive techniques used against these forms.
It's a good job they put them out.
Alright.
Yes, it is. Sometimes things work in mysterious ways. You think you figured out how to make it work, but You never know.
And so you're welcome to look closer. You can see the eyelashes in the barrel.
Oh yes, it's a very authentic looking mermaid. The beautiful eyes and the very long eyelashes. You ever seen a mermaid's eyelashes up close?
Nope.
Not up
They
It's an
close.
scare me.
impressive detail.
Oh
Uh-oh.
yes. Any questions at all?
Nope.
Something's fishy about this.
Uh,
Should I like its eyelashes?
It's beautiful.
Wonderful.
stand training form doesn't even have eyelashes. Who in the world developed that?
Beautiful.
Someone who had a lot of patience, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. A skilled blacksmith made a fortune on board a ship repairing broken old wood stoves in a frozen polar region, a fortune he intended to keep to himself. Looking around his ship one day, he realized he had a dozen wood stoves that no one had claimed after they had been repaired. Needing to remove the extra weight from his ship, and also needing to find a more suitable place to keep his treasure safe, he left the polar region for his home on a warm elephant island. He owned a small piece of the island that included a swamp. The swamp was home to many horrendous beasts, however, the least of which were endless amounts of spiders. He knew the perfect location for a hideaway for his treasure trove was a well-hidden cavern on the edge of the swamp. You would never see it unless you were falling into it. Covered in vines and growth, it was the perfect place, except it was home to thousands of spiders. He knew spiders feared one thing above all others, a larger, faster spider. To attempt to stop them from living in the cave, as well as to add an additional shock should any unfortunate soul stumble into his cavern, he carted those old forgotten wood stoves down into the darkened mouth of the cavern and created this monstrosity before you. Welding together the stoves and creating a stone plinth from the cavern's rocks, he successfully created a spider to frighten all spiders, and the others fled in fear, leaving him the freedom to place his treasure deep in the now delightfully spider-free caverns. He went back to making more and more treasure, and then readied himself eventually for a return to his caverns. Upon his return, he was looking forward to that spiderless cavern after having fought his way through so many of them in the swamps. He arrived at the cavern to find it filled, not with spiders, but with elephants, bursting at the seams with elephants. They chased him from the entrance all the way back to his ship, over and over and over again. For you see, the only thing keeping the elephants out of the cavern were the spiders, and the only thing luring them deep into the cavern was the new multiple-armed scribe post someone had put there for them to use.
Nice.
Silly.
Yes.
Never got his treasure.
No, but the elephants got one. They got one nice treasure all their own. We try to keep the elephants away from here. We're afraid that they can sense that there's some sort of delicious item in here that they may want to scratch themselves against.
I'll scratch my back. Oh,
Oh, there you go.
that was nice. That's a good back scratcher.
Yes, it's the open tubes on the end. It really gets all around the edges of something.
This way, please.
Wait until the next chamber. Give me just one moment.
Yeah, that's my kind of back scratcher right there.
It's good. Did you try it?
All right, below.
I'm out on the way out.
Oh shit. Food is. Hang on. And it.
If anyone needs your food or refreshments, there's popcorn. Popcorn, get your popcorn.
Ooh.
Some popcorn.
And it was. How's it taste? Does it taste all right? Does it taste all right?
Yeah, it's alright, yeah.
I think
Oh,
that
that's
was
some good
made with
popcorn,
the.
nice and buttered.
Yes, I think that was made with swilt butter.
Oh, delightful.
It's kind of sweet.
Please do not reach your hands inside the bars there. The printing press is haunted and could literally suck you in and crush you.
Oh, thank you.
Here.
Did you hear that,
Bear
Jack?
that
You
in
want you to
mind.
put your hands in the thing there.
How to put your hands in
Retrieve
there?
something.
What? Yeah, Jack, try and grab this book. I don't want to grab the bit. No, just, yeah, you'll be fine,
If
probably.
you're ready, we're going to the next item here.
Huh?
Here is what
Right.
was once a beautiful, marvelous circus organ. The organ was a modern wonder. It needed no one to play it, and in fact, it had no keys. It produced sound through steam. With a series of reused water and stovepipes, it could play the most beautiful melodies. It was pulled on 3 carts behind 3 elephants as the circus parade arrived in town. Playing all the while, it would let the residents know the circus was arriving. The circus fell to ruin after the death of the ringmaster and owner. The ringmaster was thrown higher than the high wire act one evening by a pair of elephants looking to escape circus life. The audience, seeing that tragedy unfold, sent out warnings to all they knew: avoid the circus at risk of peril. The organ was purchased in an auction of items from the circus by a group of ne'er-do-wells with a plan. They would travel with the reassembled pipe organ, port to port, playing friendly melodies for tips throughout the day. They would quieten as the shops closed and the people headed to the neighboring homes. Then in the late hours of the evening, they would stoke the fires of the steam heaters until they were raging. The beautiful music produced with gentle steam pressure now became a howling, screeching, clangorous noise. This caused the residents to flee their homes in terror, and horses and animals battered their stalls, not knowing what beast was capable of such horrendous noise. The ne'er-do-wells would slow the fires eventually, but only to issue a proclamation. The fires would be stoked repeatedly until the township was able to come up with a predetermined fee to pay the ne'er-do-wells leave their port in peace. The ne'er-do-wells landed in a port as usual one afternoon, and they played their beautiful music until the shops closed and the residents began to leave, and then they waited. And they went to the top of the ship to get the wood for the fires. Instead of the residents being quietly asleep, however, the entire town was standing row after row, lining the edge of the harbor, quietly staring directly at their vessel. The water was already flowing into the ship by the time the ne'er-do-wells could react. You see, the residents had been made aware of this approaching ship 2 days prior, and they had already formed a plan of their very own. The pipe organ was dismantled and trod upon. That resulted in the warped, discolored remaining pipes you see here behind me today.
Oh,
Oh,
Yes.
impressive instrument.
Yes, it
Imagine the
was.
size of this thing if this is just some of the pipes.
The remaining ones. It was pulled on 3 carts originally by 3 elephants. I can only imagine the size of it. We've been asked if it still plays beautiful music, but we can't get it to play. It's missing too many of the vital components, and on top of that, it has been damaged and trod upon, so I don't know that it would play the correct melody anyhow.
That's unfortunate.
It is. But it also can't be stoked to play an unusually horrendous noise either. So that's okay with us here.
Aye.
This way, please.
Step forward into the next chamber. Be careful not to fall into the grave.
Temptation to push you into.
I don't want to smack me all the time.
don't know. I just whenever someone's close to an edge, I just want to push them. It's not just you.
Trimmed your nails and everything.
No, thank you.
Below us here lies the coffin of the final husband of the widow of Shallow Creek. She was called the widow because she had buried 12 husbands.
Good lord.
30 husbands. Just jump. You can jump.
Okay.
Theo?
You want to lay in there? You can lay down as well if you like. Uh-oh.
I think he's petrified.
Oh.
Help.
Jump from the do a little run and then jump out. Oh. Oh, there you are.
There you go.
Most common
You're
rescue
fine
method.
now. It looks like a restful spot. In fact, it probably could be. However, she was called the widow because she had buried 12 husbands, or 13, 11 of whom were deceased. She begged for help from the townspeople. She said she was being haunted by the vengeful ghost of her most recent husband. The widows of the town vowed to help her. They formed a group which would sit in the home of the widow while she tried to rest. It was a quick rotation, for you see they all eventually stared straight again into the eyes of the man they used to know. Each night someone sat with her. Just before the skies lightened, there was a shuffling behind them. One after another, the widows fled the still darkened, creaking home. Once that group was exhausted, the widows still pleaded to the towns for help. The young single men were sent next, as they were thought to be less prone to fright. Same story, however. They all ran for their lives after gazing into the eyes of the dead man. The oldest woman in town, thought far too frail, asked, "May I go next?" She sat slumped forward. Next to the warm fire in the chair, eyes closed, back to the room when the ghost appeared. His long, bony fingers reaching, clawing, slid up over the back of the chair and around the woman's frail, thin neck. From outside the home, a blood-curdling scream that chased wolves back to their dens was cut short. The townsfolk, worried for that frail lady, but humoring her, had their ears open for her call. A number of them reached the steps to the cabin at the same time, and they clambered to the front door, flinging it open. Standing tall over two bodies was the frail old woman. What no one realized was that the oldest woman in town was also the wisest. Unable to sleep well in the cold night due to her old bones, she slept during the warm daylight hours. Every night she watched the dead husband of the widow of Shallow Creek creep into house after house in town. You see, as people went to sit with the terrified widow, her very much still alive husband was looting the houses of those who went to help her. He would arrive later and show what he had stolen from their homes to his wife. The oldest woman, however, went prepared, rolling in sleeve, to expose the ruse of the widow of Shallow Creek.
Wow. How'd
What a
she...
clever thing to do.
Oh, yes.
That's quite clever, though, no?
Ah,
Love it.
Did she put them all in the same hole?
Don't know. We didn't ask that, but you know, there's always a chance for that.
She just piled them in on the same hole. Didn't have to dig
Oh.
individuals.
Jackson.
Is it restful in there, sir?
It is, you know, it's quite peaceful.
It's pretty quiet down there, I would say. Down under the earth, yes, but probably pretty quiet down there.
Have we got any dirt to throw on top of?
No, we don't have any dirt. However, If you have a loved one who's being buried, give them a little bell to ring so you know for sure. If they're deceased, you would hate for someone to be down there locked in the box, but not able to communicate with you at all.
Yeah, it's definitely a bell to
Indeed.
ring.
Deep in a prison lie a cold, dark, windowless cell. A guard routinely traversed the corridors. One prisoner they had not planned on having, and didn't know the history of, was a magician trained in the art of lockpicking. Picking the lock came easily enough, but getting out of the area proved more difficult, as the cell was at the end of a U-shaped corridor. The prisoner had nothing but time on their hands, though, as they sat in waiting. Day in, day out, they watched the guards. And they finally thought of a plan. The guards always took the same pathway through the loop, and they realized they could never go towards the guards, they would be seen. But if they could go ahead of the guards, they may just make it out ahead of them. One problem, however, was the bed would surely be found empty, as they were on their way to the exit and freedom, raising the guards' alarm bell.
Ooh.
In an effort to fool the guards, they began to put away slices of bread and sausages in their pillowcase. This plan was nearly ruined twice, on unplanned laundry days, when they had to gorge themselves on the food that they had stashed. But finally, a dark moonless night came. It was dark enough for the plan to work. They neatly arranged the old bits of breads and sausages, and they were able to form a vague figure. Just enough for the guards to see a body asleep in bed, and enough time for them to be able to slip away. The plan went smoothly, and the prisoner was able to escape perfectly. The guards, however, eventually discovered the plan, and knowing how the head of the guards was, and knowing that they had to cover up for what had happened, they sat down for a most unwanted feast.
Hey.
Oh, that's nasty.
Oh, yes. You're welcome to take a look at the sausages and bread that were used to form the vague figure of a body in the darkened corridors. It was enough to fool the guards.
Could have fooled me.
Quite intelligent, actually.
Theo.
That's clever.
It looked like a body to me when I seen.
Look at that. It even looks like it got a bit of a face.
Yeah, it's got a... You see the mouth is open.
So I mean, I thought it was a decaying body or something.
No, it's just sausages and bread, but in the darkened corridors of a windowless cell, you would pass right by there thinking that they were just resting.
Could I have a little nibble of that sausage? It looks quite nice. Just a little
Oh,
nibble.
you can have a small...
Of course you can nibble of his sausage.
Little nibble of it.
Oh,
Oh my.
Oh, yes.
That one right there. Ooh.
Did you get a sausage?
Did you find one? Did you find a good one? Was it arm or leg sausage? It's important.
It was leg sausage.
Ah, that's good. Here before us is the interior of the city offices of the Butcher of Butterfly Lane, as he was later known. Shown on the table are the actual repurposed tools that he used, fancying him a dentist. He was able to convince the local populace that he was legitimate. Using a plant known for hallucinogenic properties, he was able to cause patients to, in essence, mentally leave their bodies, or tied to the bed here before you. He would then remove all of the teeth of the victim, promising only repair to the teeth. It became so much easier to convince them afterward all the teeth were found to be bad, and therefore none of the work which he could not do need be performed. Human teeth were prized and highly bad form of carotenoid, similar to bone but with a much sturdier structure once refined properly. The fraudulent dentist would leave his office early in the day, and that was thought odd by the community, considering how many of them desperately needed dental work. They had a nefarious reason for always leaving, though. He was tainting the town's water supply with ground-up giant squid innards. The innards still contained the powerful acids that the squid uses to break down sharp shells ingested in their normal feeding cycle. And even once ground up and dispersed, those innards still had enough acid quality to weaken the teeth of the city dwellers to the point they needed dental work, and thereby supplying the fraudulent dentist with the teeth he so desired.
Oh my god, I didn't know that.
Did that mannequin just move?
Yep.
What the?
I didn't know they moved.
What the hell's going on?
It's
That's one of our clockworks here at the museum. They have a little winder in the back, and you can wind them up, and then they're able to make movements. They're not supposed to make sounds at all, but we find that some of them are capable of making sound.
Oh, that's creepy.
I didn't like it.
I don't like it.
If you want to see something very unusual, we haven't shown anyone else what we've discovered. But I'd be willing to show your group what we've found.
Hi, please.
Dude.
Just a moment. Let me go get the rest of my supplies. You stay right there. I'll be right back.
Oh, sorry.
Stay here, Theo.
Theo.
It's still moving.
Oh yes, you just wind them up, and if you wind it up too tight, they keep moving. They're called clockworks. They're great, especially if you go through a shimmer and you see them bobbing up and down in a foggy shimmer.
There we go. We wind it into this position here.
Okay, for those that wants to get a closer look, please come forward and stand around.
Yes, not all of the clockworks are manufactured with a little hinge on the side of the head, but this clockwork was. We're able to remove the top of the clockwork skull, and if you approach closely, you can look inside and see what appears to be a human brain, eyes, and teeth inside of the clockwork.
Oh, that's.
Oh.
And if you look at the
And
back
where
of the
am I looking?
head, you will actually see hair growing out.
What?
Actual human hair has been seen to be growing out of the back of the clockwork skull.
Can I get one of these?
I was gonna say, do you perhaps have any to barter for or trade for?
Yes, we do have an extra that's not on display currently. Did you want the one that has a removable top of the head? This is
Yes, please.
This is the only one that we have here. But let me see what I can find for you.
We also have it in different models too. There's a male and a female version.
I don't mind. It's not whatever.
It's for personal use, isn't it, Anna?
No, I just like the missing part of the head. I'm going to have a look at that.
That's crazy.
Also, be careful if you stand too close. It has been known to swap your clothes.
Oh, what?
It will take your clothing from you.
That is terrifying.
Well, if we see
Look how
Anno
ladies
roaming
do
around the
that
port
too.
confused and naked.
Yes.
Bye, Anno.
Alright, this is how the clockwork comes. I do want you to know that we are not responsible for any incidents regarding the clockwork, however. It is up to you to wind the clockwork yourself. Do not leave them abandoned in the woods as the other ones that we have found. Someone is dumping clockworks into the woods surrounding different areas.
Yeah.
I found one on an island near the Freeport south of here. That appears to be a person wearing clothing, standing in the middle of the woods. But it is just an abandoned clock painted to look like a human being, we believe.
That made me jump so bad.
In the back of the head here, I want you to examine the fact that it is growing human hair. It's up to you to take it to your facility and away from here.
And as far as our refund and exchange policy, there is no refunds, no exchange, no takebacks.
They're not allowed to be returned to us. If you have one that you no longer want, evidently people are abandoning them in the woods, painted to look like humans.
And should we put the stipulation that they can't name them after us, Boggert or Boggatha?
Are they abandoned as such, or have they escaped and tried to emulate a human being?
Oh no, don't weird me out.
Always a possibility. I want to show you, though. Sometimes they move very rapidly. We don't want you to become frightened if this was to Oh, it's growing more hair now. There's even more hair growing out the back of the skull than there was before. I don't know if anyone looked before, but they may want to look one more time and see how much more hair is now grown.
Are we sure we want this?
Yeah.
Yes.
They move
They
very
go along the wall.
rapidly. They will frighten you, and they do not always move when you're not looking at them.
What's that on the floor?
Oh.
It's nothing at all. That's nothing whatever. Ah, there you go. Now it's in the position where if you did not take a look, you have to look really deeply forward through your eyes into the bottom of the skull to see the human teeth that are in the inside. Oh, yes. You can also see the back of what appears to be a pair of eyes. Why does a clockwork need actual eyes and actual teeth? Why would it be growing anything on the inside that resembled a brain? Is it an object just simply painted to look like a brain? We cannot tell here at the museum.
Perhaps they're becoming self-aware.
Or
Even
we
more
can
so.
have Anno and Miss Crow do some experiments. Try to find out.
Fine. He's already set up, don't worry.
All right. Who wants to be the steward of the clockwork?
Me.
There you are.
Please. Oh, yes.
There you are. You make sure that that clockwork is outfitted with those items that I have given you in order to gain access to the hinge on top of the head.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
For your trouble.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We will continue the tour with only one or two more clockworks, possibly.
Hang on, I just need this.
Hold on while we reset the clockwork in this display. If you find you're having trouble, this is for you, steward of the clockwork. If you find you're having trouble, putting back on the top of the skull of the clockwork, you have to take the little skull that's sitting on the clockwork's head and put it in their pocket, and then remove it again. It does not like to come straight to your hand. It likes to go into the pocket first, and then to your hand.
Alright.
Right. cargo freighter named the Sea Slicer sailed through a fog-shrouded sea. It lurched high and low in the seas, crates groaning at its sides. On board, amongst the crew, stood a mere deckhand. As the ship passed through a shimmer, a mysterious event occurred. Every person, in fact every creature everywhere, disappeared, except for the deckhand. Calling out to anyone else, he realized he was totally alone. In fear for the crates, the contents, and the ship itself, the deckhand began to panic. He didn't understand the workings of the ship enough to get the ship under control, and without a crew with sails and manage the wheel, it did seem a task that could not be accomplished. Hello? Hello? Help! The deckhand pleaded. But his pleas were heard by the only other thing that inhabited the world. The figure stood just before him on the other side of the cabin door, but he could immediately tell the figure was not human. It had no facial features. In fact, it had no features at all. The ship continued to careen out of control, and just as the figure reached through the doorway, the whole ship crashed on the shore of a desolate island. The deckhand was thrown overboard and down into the water just beside the shoreline. While running from the ship and the figure, the deckhand began to realize he wasn't breathing normally. Every breath he took, it grew shallower and shallower. The farther he made it from shore, the less he could breathe. The world grew darker and darker until he finally went unconscious. The deckhand awakened and found himself all the way back where his voyage began. But the crew, the ship, and the cargo were never seen again. They say that the shimmer figure waits just over the shimmer for the very next crew. Will you be the only one it spares, or will you never be seen again?
Oh God.
I'd rather just disappeared. Please don't leave me on the boat alone ever.
We hear that this figure also hungers for shoulder pets and any type of pets that may be traveling on the sea and crossing the shimmer.
Soot.
And to make things even more creepier, the shimmer figure has duplicated a past and a future self.
No, not himself, but he is doing duplications. We've had word here 2 times now within the museum that at some times when you cross the shimmer, you will encounter your own ship and your own crew on the other side. Instead of completely alone, there will now be another one of each of you. However, the one who has arrived on the other side of the shimmer is also from the past. So the 2 of you meet on the other side of the shimmer, and you have to decide which of you will carry forward, the current you or you from the past.
If I immediately have a fear, I'm going to give him one of these kick whoop ass.
What happened to Eric?
Straight in his face.
Eric was
You've
on
seen
our
it?
ship, but sleeping body Eric was also on our ship. It was
I mean, you've had a duplication yourself of one of your crew members
yeah,
Oh,
and I lost my shoulder monkey.
at the shimmer.
Yeah.
Or Gavin.
Oh, the shimmer
No,
figures.
Gavin's fine. It was soot.
We're trying to help people here by giving out these warnings. You've all seen it for yourselves. Now you understand it's true. If you see any of these happenings out on the sea, be sure to tell people to come here and hear the warnings so we can protect other people from having these same maladies befall them.
We will spread the good
Absolutely.
word. We'll do it.
I appreciate that so much. Next exhibit is here behind everyone. In a remote cabin, something unusual happened. The owner of the cabin had grown older and more tired, and as the years were catching up to him, he thought he needed a way to bring some sort of life back to his life. He found a place where he could for a price order a tincture promising to bring just that to him. He placed an order, gave his address, and was told to wait 6 nights, and he would hear a loud bang on his door. He wasn't not to look outside for the courier, only to wait quietly for the 6th night. On the arranged night, he sat patiently waiting. The loud bang was heard at the darkest portion of the night. nearly jumping from his skin. He realized only then that he was a bit longer still than he even realized. He waited a moment, opened the door to retrieve a package bound in hides and tied to a large stone. He thought the bottle was unusually shiny until he realized a portion of the shine was coming from inside the bottle. He swirled the bottle around in his fingers and stared at the cork topper. He thought of his plan, and he glanced up at the portrait of his loved one. He realized this bottle may hold more than he bargained for. What if this turned back his aging? What if it stopped him from aging at all? Could he said when he was through with this powerful elixir? He sighed then, and he realized, now that he held this power in his hand, what he missed was not his youth. It was what was part of his youth, and that was not coming back. Angry mostly at himself, he flung the bottle into the fireplace and coated the back of it, where the fireplace began to grow and roar like a tiger, and it spit flames across the room, eventually settling back down into a normal fireplace once again. The man wondered what type of magic was in that tincture, and he vowed to himself he would never again try to recapture that which is meant to be left in the past.
Fascinating.
Oh,
Who's the picture? Is that you?
Oh, that's not
Above
me.
there?
It is similar. That's the loved one. Oh, it's not me, however. Not sure. We weren't given any identification with the photo.
sometimes it's better not to know.
This way, please.
No. Yes. This way to the next chamber.
Creepy hands.
If anyone needs some more popcorn, you're welcome to grab some.
Sure, you're welcome to a nice break here. There's foods and beverages in the barrels there. If you're thirsty, hungry, or somewhere in between, we have the popped corn if you're interested at all. Just waiting for everyone. Alright, has everyone had a snack?
Yes,
Alright, thank you.
Right? The story of this printing press begins in the polar north. The freighter Frozen Sails was used to deliver supplies to a far-flung polar research base, where the Frozen Institute was located. On the slippery top deck of the Frozen Sails, a crew member called out eerily, "Who's there?" when they heard voices in the frozen fog crying. The calling out stopped the other crew members in their tracks. Soon enough, they could hear it too, enchanting voices. But they were not calling out in sorrow. They were calling out in song. By the time that they could raise the alarm, no one wanted to any longer. Below decks, a sleeping crew member who would be on a late shift was awakened. They were slid out of bed and across the sleeping quarters. Just as that crew member made it halfway out to the topside, the sails, sitting untended, whirled and snapped violently in the wind. The heeling of the ship was so intense that the crew members who were not already overboard were dumped overboard. The crew member was all struck with horror. The crew member had plugged their ears with rolled cotton to stop the loud crew from waking them and was now oblivious to the sounds coming from the ocean. But they knew in an instant what was happening. The ship was under the attack of the siren's song. Masts, weakened by the whirling and the forceful snapping, groaned and gave way. They crashed down through the decks below and severely damaged the hull of the ship. The crew member climbed into a dinghy, lowered it, and looked around as those nearby sickeningly dove underwater and swam down into the now dark, freezing abyss. The survivor rode and rode for hours in the frozen waters until they had reached the land. They They staggered onto the frosty shores, they called out, and they collapsed. They had made it to the island of the Frozen Institute, and they would very soon be found. The same cannot be said for the Frozen Sails and her other crew. They drifted down into the darkened, frozen depths. The survivor decided to print a book to tell the tale of that horrendous day, and use the boards from the dinghy that they survived in to make this printing press behind me, to print their book on. It is said that the sea sirens had placed a curse on that dinghy because they did not get the chance to claim everything in the ocean that day. Those cursed boards, used to make this now cursed printing press before you, can at times call out to those nearby, asking them to climb into its gnashing jaws. It is rumored to have eventually devoured the very crew member who created it, and it leaves us to wonder, now is it satisfied, or will it strike again?
I hope not.
Hope not. I'm standing
Now I
back.
see why you gave the warning.
Yeah, you gotta stand way back. It's very, very worrisome. We always worried someone will reach their hand through there, try to tinker with the little knobs and things, and the next thing you knew, they're all the way in there.
Oh no.
Right. That brings us to our final oddity here at BoggOdd Oddities Museum. If you'll make your way now back to where we began.
Please come and stand in front of the double doors.
Yes, make your way in.
What in the world?
Oh, what?
So,
In front of you stands Hura, the oddity of Itch Meadow Farm. Born during a hurricane, it is believed that she was born in mid-air, but the wrong way around. She is now utterly convinced that she is standing the right way up, and we cannot correct her. She does not use her hooves to move around, and instead she drags herself along with her horns and wiggles side to side like a serpent to get around. She is able to see the berries on the underside of bushes that the other animals miss, so maybe she's a new adaptation of the species in order to fill a void. Her hooves must be filed down regularly, as she does not wear them naturally. She produces what her original owners at the farm referred to as the wrong way milk, in that it comes out the wrong way around. We here at the museum call it swilk. It is said that by not hanging down into the udders and cooling, the swilk is able to stay hotter longer and produces a sweeter, more mature milk with a caramel flavor undertone that is prized over regular milk. You're welcome to take a closer look at her if you like. And you're also welcome
Yeah.
to a sample of swilk that Boggert placed for us.
She's utterly
All I can say is
convinced.
I'm utterly surprised.
Yummy, yum.
It does keep the udders with... What?
Sorry, I was just going to say she's utterly convinced, and I think I just wet my pants a little bit giggling.
Utterly convinced. Standing the right way around. But yes, we have found that the udder stays much cleaner in this position. But the regular cow, we want to warn everyone, you need to wash your milk from the regular cow. And we've heard everyone ask, well, how do you wash milk? Well, you wash the milk with the milk, you see. You rub it against itself until it doesn't look dirty anymore. It starts to look clean after a while. You don't want to do it too much. You end up with a whipped cream or some sort of cheese or something. But please, clean your milk when you're out.
God, I've never cleaned the milk
We've
before.
never cleaned our milk, Al.
What?
You're not cleaning
I'm
your
sorry,
milk.
I didn't know you had to clean milk.
no, I didn't have to clean milk either.
Well, now you do.
Not the
No, I
swilk.
do.
The swilk is pretty good. It's coming out the other way around, so
Yes.
there's not any foul things down there.
Yeah, the desk there is if anybody wants to leave a review or sign a guest book. There's some blank letters there you can grab, and you can deposit it in the deposit box to the left of the desk, or there's a deposit box out as you exit the building.
We have a deposit box there for any type of donations that you may want to leave behind today. None are required, and we don't ask for anything here, but any little token you might want to leave is perfectly fine with us.
Well, thank you for a very moving talk.
That was incredible.
It was good.
So good.
Yeah.
I will certainly be leaving a tip behind.
Oh, well, thank you very much. We're so very pleased that so many people have heard the warnings and are able to spread them around on the seas. We want you all to be careful today if you were to decide to cross a shimmer of any kind.
Yeah, definitely.
Jack.
Remember that one.
Do we have a leaflet for this place up in our port?
I think Miss Crow's got one.
If you don't have a leaflet, there's one just outside the doors on the right-hand side. You're welcome to pull one down from behind the others out there on the notice board.
Yeah, I got one.
Oh, all right.
We'll put one up for you as well. We'll keep spreading the word.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate it. We're trying to warn as many people as we can about some of these strange and unusual and utterly odd things that have happened.
Utterly disastrous.
I've gone again.
Utterly convinced.
Are you okay, Yasmin?
No, I'm broken.
Maybe you need to cower in the corner. Control yourself. Before we
I
move
think you're
out.
milking it now.
Alright guys, come on, don't milk it.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
welcome. You're very welcome.
Where's the tip box, sorry?
Yeah.
It's right inside the door over here.
Ah.
I left a small tip as well. And a review.
Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you for the lovely tour. It was quite an experience.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Safe sails.
Thank you.
Safe seas to you all. Beware of the shimmers.
Thank you.
I just want to tell you that I had absolutely lovely time, and
Yeah,
I
it seems like you have some
think
more
this is
guests showing up.
amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I
Thank you
couldn't
so
find.
Whoa.
Oh, perfect.
That was a good bonk.
Make sure you congratulate Elias for me, would you? I just seen his picture up there. I don't know what he did, but well done him.
I've learned things.
Yes, he's employee of the month here.
Well done.
Thank you for coming.
Boggert,
Thank you.
thank you very
I
much.
didn't know there were so many
Wonderful.
Thank you for the great tour.
Right, thank you very much for the talk. Wonderful.
So good.
Oh, do we need to get in line?
Oh yes, it's very catchy.
Alright.
Oh my, I'm God when I learned how. Alright, I've got this. Oh wait, wrong one.
You gotta wave it.
Oh
Kind of sad the others run off. Wanted them to see our greatness.
Well, I think we got it here.
It was good, that was.
That was
Fabulous.
good.
Thank you for wonderful experience, you two. Wonderful indeed.
Thank you for stopping by at BoggOdd Oddities Museum. Be sure to tell others.
Oh, we will.
will.
We definitely will.
Farewell now.
Bye. Boggert, are you in the museum?
Yes, I was checking to see if anybody's locked in.
I don't think anyone is. I think there's another ship at the ports over there in the towns. But I
Okay,
can't tell you.
let's double check.